From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Oh, there you are, sweet Jesus. Come back to Papa.
The highs and lows, are just can be pretty brutal, that place. But, I think that's what is so fun about it is the challenges.
I saw Will Power smack the wall out of 4 with 10 to go. He's still going.
Dixon?
No. Connor.
Oh, Connor, yeah.
Yeah, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, Connor, and, you got to pick a direction, pal, and I'll stick with you.
Oh, I don't know. You lose track about halfway through.
I go to move when it's full of methanol. Both of them are full of methanol. Big bang. I turn around and the glasses are smoking. And he goes, whoa, good thing you gave me those, right?
I'm Scott Dixon.
I'm Antron Brown.
Hey, I'm Ron Cap.
I'm Connor Daly.
I'm James Hinchcliffe.
Hi, I'm Cruz Pedregon, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's another edition of The Skinny. As we begin here, I'm Ken Stout, Rico Elmore sitting alongside. We have a full studio. Michael Young back behind the controls as usual. We welcome Mr. Stephen Grine in here, one of our producers as well, an editor for our show. And, of course, the main guest here with us today has been competing on the NHRA Tour for some 30 years now. He is absolutely one of the best. He's a two-time champion when it comes to funny car. Welcome, Mr. Cruz Pedregon. Hey, buddy. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Hey, good to be here. I've heard a lot about this show. Glad to finally be on. And, see what we can do here.
Cruz was one of our original guys back in the day when we tried to start doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been doing this this racing game for a long time. Well, if we're gonna have a conversation with you, we have to go back when you were a little kid. Your father, obviously legendary out there in Southern California as well, and certainly you grew up around it. Your path was laid out pretty early on.
Yeah, it was. When people ask me how many years I've been doing this, I think, do I count my when I used to race my brothers on foot? Do I count my go-kart?
Where does it actually start?
My speedway karting days back at Ventura Speedway. Where do we start? Or the truck drag racing that I did. So we got to keep it in the pros, I guess. That's more.
Well, I'm going back farther than that because you already brought it up. That's the first thing I wanted to ask you about was when you started racing. It was in a 1953 Kenworth.
Yeah, my racing path wasn't conventional, and I tell kids all the time that ask me, "Hey, what can I do to aspire, or to start a path in racing?" I said, you need to do whatever you can do, whatever your personal story is, and if it's taking out mom's car out on a Wednesday night to the track, and whatever, So I did what I could to race. My dad had retired from drag racing, so we had a truck lot, a truck. My dad was into truck sales. He had a trucking company, so they sent a flyer, a flyer of 8x10 flyer to the local drag strip called Orange County Raceway. And so they were racing truck drags. So I knew my dad wouldn't let me race any race car because we didn't have one. So I figured, hey, why don't we just take one of these? So my old restored 53 Kenworth ran a whopping 21 seconds in the quarter mile, banging a 13-speed transmission, and but it was bracket race. So the trucks I was racing were 18, 19-second trucks. So I would get like 2 or 3 second, bracket ET racing. So I'd get a little jump and banging gears, and they would come chasing me, and I wound up winning the whole event. It was a magazine called American Trucker that put the event on back in the day. If some of you remember, some of you truckers that are listening. So, yeah, it was really cool. It started my career. I won the race, so I thought, hey, this is we're going to win every race I ever enter the rest of my life. Right. So this is it.
That's kind of a bad start.
Oh,
right?
It is.
When you went right out of the gate.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course, your brother Tony, very successful in this game as well. Another two-time champ. Your brother Frank, very successful in this game as well of NHRA Funny Car, a U.S. Nationals winner. You talked about your father racing. Did all three, you raced karts when you were young, did all three of you brothers race karts at the same time?
Well, Tony never raced the go-karts. Tony was in school, private school, I might add. Me and Frankie were in the regular hood school, and Tony got the private school. But Tony had straight A's, and my dad figured, hey, we're going to put a little money in this kid, and these other guys can go to the regular school.
There's my racehorse right there.
Yeah. So we actually we became friends with Parnelli's kids, PJ and Paige Jones, Parnelli Jones, 63 Indy 500 winner. So they were starting out at near Ascot. There was a little DG track next door to the big half-mile Ascot track, and so they raced the speedway bikes during the weekend, and then they would open it up for kart racing, I think, on Saturday night. So anyway, we became regulars there. Actually, Brian Herta started his career there. Was in the juniors at the time, and so
Go-karting.
yeah, and the go-karting. Yeah, these were a Yamaha 100. Pretty serious racing carts, and so that's where we got our start. We became friends with the Jones family and started racing Orange Show, Carlsbad, Ventura Raceway. Jim Naylor still up there. Was just watching a race there, but so yeah, we started out what was affordable to us, and the carts, they were still pretty pricey, but we made it work, and it was really cool to start, and I won the '85 Ventura Championship.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people, when they ask me about my dirt track career, or if I'm on iRacing like I am today, or in my love for midgets and sprint cars, I tell them, look, I started out dirt track racing before I ever went, with the exception of the 53 Kenworth truck story. But, that was not sustainable because there was no truck racing. It was not a regular thing. They just did it once a year. So, yeah, so the kart racing was my start.
So when you pulled up to the truck race, was there a bunch of empty trailers sitting out there where they just took the night off?
There
from
was
their regular job?
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and and so many in Southern California, especially, there was trucks, lowered Peterbilts and Kenworths. It's kind of the Southern California thing. So there was a lot of really nice trucks there, and they were racing big old 3 axles that were heavy duty. But I had a little 2 axle that we built after the 53 Kenworth to race with. That little V8 Detroit with twin turbos, and so we got a little more serious about it. But Rico, yeah, it was a lot of that. There was a lot of truckers that, and believe it or not, it was very successful. They packed the stands. And I remember they had a wire for the tree. The tree was hanging. It wasn't self-standing at the time. So they had to prop it up to make sure the exhaust stacks that were 11 and 12 feet.
Didn't clip them.
Yeah. So, it was really cool. It was a fun day. It was all day, and I didn't have, at the time I was 15, 1981 in July, I was 15 years old. I had a permit to drive, but didn't have so if somebody a DOT would have stopped me there, that we'd have all been impounded right on the spot and not been able to get home because I was 15 years old and I was wheeling this Kenworth.
You are talking about Southern California, so maybe DOT was that way back then, but they have certainly stepped their game up since then. And California is, they're as brutal as they come. But that's pretty cool, man. It's a great story. And like you mentioned before, ripping the 13 speed. And I remember back in the day, and back then it wasn't uncommon to see the two-stick trucks as well.
Oh, yeah. We had them all. We had, so my background's trucks. That's why I still, to this day, like if you look at my trucks that haul my transporters, they're all T680 Kenworths and a little bit lower to have some bling on them, because I've always really felt like that was my start.
We have Cruz Pedregon on the set with us. When we come back, we're going to ask him how it all got started with the NHRA.
Would you mind driving the funny car? I'm like, I'd rather drive the funny car.
Would you mind driving
the funny car instead of the dragster? So I said, are you kidding me? So anyway, the rest is history.
The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. Toyota, let's go places. Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil, keep that engine alive. General Tire. General Tire delivers. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear. Hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Cruz Pedregon on the set with us here today. Some 40 wins he's had in the NHRA over the course of 3 different categories, and of course, primarily in funny car. And Cruz, you've had a lot of success there. We documented at the top of the show you've been in this game for 30 years with the NHRA. How did you ramp up from racing trucks, racing go-karts, to finally getting that opportunity to play with the big dogs?
Well, I did a lot of networking. I knew that in order for me to make a career out of this, I would have to get out there and shake the bushes. And my dad passed away when I was fairly young. I had just turned 18. And so my career as a business owner that my dad wanted us to be involved with, that all went away when he passed. So I figured, I'm going to go out on the road, so to speak. So my dad had a lot of friends and contacts. So I became closer with my dad's racing friends, and I kind of networked. And pretty soon I was literally that guy that would work, like instead of we'll work for food or we'll drive for food. So I was one of those guys. I wasn't looking to get paid. I just went out there and I just wanted an opportunity to get in a car. And so sure enough, one of my dad's friends, Charlie Marquez, gave me an opportunity in a really older car that was really low budget. And so, and a lot of racers, you really think about, you have to start at the very bottom. But I wanted to be a driver. I didn't want to work on the car. I didn't want to start that way. I wanted to be a driver. So I wound up painting the guy's truck and trailer because we were painters. We did everything at my dad's shop. We painted, we worked on trucks, we rebuilt everything. So I wound up painting the truck and trailer, driving, and so it was rough in the beginning. But then I got noticed by, it's just like anything. You get noticed by people, and Gary Turner, the GT Bikes guy, was building a car. Actually had a car already built, but he had the wherewithal financially to put me in a good car, and when I won races in that car, and then I worked into. I have to mention Joe Paisano. Joe Paisano was the owner of Vinolia Pistons back in Long Beach, and he was a friend of my dad's also. So he kind of like put me under his wing and kind of taught me the tough lessons, gave me some tough love. But he's the guy that introduced me to Larry Miner, the potato farmer out of Southern California that had really the first multi-car team back in the 80s. He had Ed McCullough, Dick LaHaye, Gary Beck, very big, prominent owner, had the financial wherewithal again to put me in a good car. So I remember I came with Jimmy Proc's dad, Tom Proc, to the Indy Nationals, my first venture out away from Southern California. We didn't have a car. My owner, Gary Turner, was that was out of his. He wanted to race Southern California. He said, "No, we're not going to go to Indy. That's too far." So I was up for the CarCraft Driver of the Year award. I was one of 3 drivers: Mike Troxel, Melanie Troxel's dad, Bill Barney. I'm really dating myself. This was 1989, and there was 3 potential winners: myself, Bill Barney, Mike Troxel, and I'm eating dinner. I'm eating this steak, sitting at the back by myself. Tom didn't go to this thing. And I'm in the middle of eating, and they called my name, and I get up and I'm like, whoa, man, I won. I couldn't believe I won. So I still have the ring. It was really an honor at the time, prestigious, to win the CarCraft Magazine Driver of the Year for alcohol dragsters in 1989. And so that year, with walking around with Tom Proc, Paisano called me over to his trailer, and he says, "Hey, I want you to meet. This is Larry Miner." And I was so nervous. I shook his hand. I was so nervous, but. So yeah, that was really the big break that I got to get into the pros from alcohol. And granted, I had won a lot. I won several races. I was a good driver, kept my nose clean. I wasn't into partying. I was a pretty straight-laced guy. So yeah, Larry gave me my opportunity in 1991 to drive a part-time Top Fuel car. And the very next year, we attained the McDonald's Larry obtained the McDonald's sponsorship. And Ed McCullough, who was driving the funny car, the Miller funny car for all those years, wanted to drive the dragster. So Larry goes, I remember this was at Reading. We're at Reading, and he goes, he asked me, he goes, would you mind driving the funny car? I'm like, I'd rather drive the funny car.
Would you mind driving
the funny car instead of the dragster? So I said, are you kidding me? So anyway, the rest is history. That was my first year, funny car, McDonald's, big sponsor, big everything. And yeah, we were on our way at that point.
So was that Larry's team, or was that Joe's team at that point?
That was Larry Miner's team. That was Larry Miner's team. And so I went on to drive for Larry 92, 93, 94. And in 95 is when Joe Gibbs, Coach Gibbs, took over the McDonald's sponsorship, bought all new equipment, didn't buy anything from Larry. And so that was my third car owner, if you count Charlie Marquez, Gary Turner, Larry Miner, Joe Gibbs. It was very awkward for me because Larry gave me my big break, and it was very hard for me to really leave Larry. But hey, I was torn, but I wanted to go where I knew there was going to be sponsorship. I was able to race for years to come, and so yeah, I mean that was myself and Corey Mack. We had a two-car team, dragster with Corey, myself in the funny car, and my very first race with Joe Gibbs, we won the Winter Nationals in the funny car, and so we got off to a good start, and 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, all with Joe Gibbs. My first year, we won 5 races that year. One of them the U.S. Nationals. What's weird about that year, and at the time we had no countdown. It was what you accumulated throughout the year. And at the time, John Forrest was 2-time champion. Well, John was so dominant at the time. Perdomo had just retired. Bernstein had gone to dragster. Perdomo had gone to dragster too. So Forrest was really the dominant car. Well, he would have the championship sewn up by the U.S. Nationals, like 5 or 6 races to go. So that's why later on they changed the format. But we were pretty far behind, and we went on to win 5 races that year, including the U.S. Nationals, 5 in a row, and won the championship from John Forrest. So to this day, he had I didn't know this at the time, but John Forrest had T-shirts made 90, 91, 92 champions or championship, right? So we ran on his parade there, but so it was really cool to dethrone the great John Ford. He's great back then. So yeah, we went on to win 5 in a row. So yeah, it was really cool.
The only team in the 90s to win a championship other than him.
And so, but at the time, you know, things were changing within the Larry Minor camp. Longtime crew chief Bernie Federley had really left the team in the middle of the year, so we had a makeshift crew chief scenario. We had Lee Beard on the dragster helping us. We had Larry Meyer. So it was really a lot of stuff going on. But we did win the championship. We had an incredible car. That car was that McDonald's 92 car was as good a car as I've ever had. It had a dragster engine combination. At the time, funny cars were just funny car combinations, and you had the dragster, had the drag. So we were the first team to really bring the concept of running a dragster engine camshaft, all the nozzle. We really had what Lee Beard's engine dragster combination that he developed through the years in a funny car. And so that car was a bad mofo, man. We reset the national record by 300ths. You know, nowadays you knock a couple tenths off it. John had it at 5:15. We went 5:10 at Houston and won and were the national record. So it was a really good car. But then, you know, that car, as I look back at my career, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to go on my own, because the crew chief wasn't retained. The combination went south. Larry Minor started bringing in a bunch of different crew chiefs. So when I was driving for Joe Gibbs, I had always aspired to own my own team. And I got that opportunity in 1999. I started buying equipment, and the Joe Gibbs funny car team ended, I think, in 2000, something like that. I think it ran another year after I drove it. Tommy Johnson drove it for about a year. But I knew the writing was on the wall. For me to sustain my career as a driver, I was going to have to venture off on my own and figure out how to do it. As lofty as that sounded and as crazy as that sounded, I had to figure out, hey, man, if I want to be a driver into my 40s and even my 50s, I'm not going to be that guy knocking on a door looking, hey, can I drive your car? I wanted to just do it and if I failed, hey, I was going to fail trying to do it like that old song goes, doing it my way. And lo and behold, I starved for a couple of years. People were asking me, man, Cruz, you made good money as a driver. You're going to throw it all away. I'm like, yeah, right. I might. But you know what? It worked out for me. Advanced Auto Parts came in the early 2000s. And I was able to carry that to a championship with I hired Ron Tobler, who was a dragster crew chief in 2007. We won it in 2008. So I'll bring you up to where we are now. Snap-on, who had been a longtime associate, even on the Larry Minor McDonald's car, we brought them on board as a primary in 2010, and that's where we are today. 2022 is a 12-year relationship with one sponsor is really a huge deal. But you know, I couldn't be with a better company. They believe in me. They believe in what we do. I get out and I visit mechanics and technicians throughout the country. Every track I go to on a Thursday, I dedicate my time to ride with the franchisee. And, I spend a lot of time. I work at it, but you know what? Sponsors are about, it's not what they can do for you. It's what you can do for them. And that's the key. We can talk about sponsors all day, but, they know what they can do for you, and that's write a check, to fund your operation. But it's really about what you can do for them. And they're great with customer service. Hey, what goes better? Racing and tools, right? That's why you see the different tool companies out here. So I'm really with a great company and a great product. And anyway, we can backtrack. We can do the old Tarantino thing.
We're going to take a quick
walk through the whole thing, and we're going to go back the other way.
Hold on. He's on a roll here for sure. As he alluded to, he started his own team. He'd already enjoyed some success. We'll talk to him about being a team owner when we come back.
Tell it like it is, and not just be just a guy. Everybody's great, and man, that guy's not everybody's great. So you see, I still have a little bit of that. I want to argue about that right now.
Welcome back to the Skinny. Good friend of Mr. Rico Elmore is in the house with us. That is Cruz Pedregon sitting right alongside, and we've had a pleasure of learning how he got started in this business of drag racing. And if you were with us at the beginning of the show, you will also see that he had some great success early on with some of the absolute biggest names in the sport to this day. But you talked about starting your own team and going back to 1999. You did that, and it was tough. And matter of fact, I want to say a year, maybe 2 years later, you retired for a year and you were in the booth. doing some TV stuff.
Yeah, Tom Compton, the then NHRA president, walked up to me at the finals, and I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to race without any sponsorship dollars. I didn't want to be that guy that was out there really not being able to afford it. And so when I did race without major sponsorship, I did have the parts, the pieces. I try to take a business approach to everything. And so I was going to sit the year out, and however long it took till I got a sponsor. And I had no leads. So Compton came up to me, and we were putting stuff away, and I'm all dirty. And he asked me if I would like to do the TV thing. And I said, sure. And I'm glad I did. But that was the year that behind the scenes, I was talking to Advance Auto Parts. Tony had a relationship with one of the marketing guys there when he was with Forrest with Castro. So I made that, I did all I could to sell myself here. You always have to sell yourself as a driver. You never are not in the sales business. And that could be, again, it's what you could do for that company. So luckily there was an opportunity there. And even though I did the TV, and I loved the TV, I think the TV thing was good. I was planning on doing it for multi-years and I wanted to be like the next John Madden. I wanted to be the guy that didn't exactly say the things that you should say. And, I didn't want to make enemies, but I wanted to be able to be the guy to tell it like it is and not just be just a guy, everybody's great. And man, that guy's not everybody's great. So see, I still have a little bit of that. I want to argue about that right now, but
that's what we like, the truth. You want to hear, listen, you were the color analyst. You're the guy sitting beside the host, and we rely on people like you to tell us what's really going on here.
Right.
Give us the inside.
Right. And, one of the questions, because Tony was driving at the time, they asked me if I could be critical of Tony. I said, oh, yeah, I can be critical of Tony. There's no problem there. But so I did that. And like I said, it was a lot harder than it looked. You had to work at it. And it was a little bit of just like driving, just like anything. You have to work at your craft. And I videoed myself, and I try to be as good as I could. And then, like I said, I was getting comfortable in the role, and then we put the Advanced Auto Parts thing together, and so it gave me another breath of life again. I was able to, because I thought, hey, this might be it, man. I'm gonna be, I had a nice little career, but hey, this is what I'm gonna do, and hey, I'm okay with it. But if I look back, Ken and Rico, and I look back at, I was pretty fortunate. I won a world championship in funny car in my 20s. I went into owning my own team in my 30s. So here I thought it was doom and gloom, but I look back at my career and think, man, I did some pretty cool things at a fairly young age. And when you say 30 years I've been doing this, I still, like, I'm looking around, I think you're talking about someone else, because I can't believe it's been 30 years. Heck, I wanted to race for 3 years. And if I could do that, I would feel like I was successful. So, I don't know what I did different, but I think a little bit's the right place, the right time. But I did really dedicate myself. I stayed away from the parties, and I remember I did an interview. I remember listening to Rick Mears, and I know we're in the IndyCar world here in Brownsburg, and I love IndyCar and NASCAR and the dirt track especially. But I remember listening to Rick Mears in the 80s. They did an interview with him, and he talked about how he didn't feel like he fit in the party scene, and that really stuck with me. And I thought, man, that's kind of me. I kind of felt when I heard that, I thought, man, that's like, hell, I thought that all the good drivers were cool. They were at the parties, drink. No, man, they were dedicated,
they were working,
focused. Yeah, and that was kind of me. And not saying I did that all the time, but I really, in the early days, I was really wanted to be good at what I did, and I wanted to do it for a long time.
I think that was the persona. I mean, I think everybody outside, and I think it probably still holds true today, thinks that all the drivers are just partying. Like they show up at the racetrack, they drive cool cars, then they go out at nighttime and they're partying and having a great time, and it's anything but. We've been picking his brain about how things got going. We're going to talk to him about what it feels like to be behind the wheel of an NHRA funny car when we come back.
My other brother, Frankie, we were critical of him because he would have his best reaction times against us and then crappy ones against the other guys. Like, man, pretend you're racing us all the time when you race these other guys. But
The Skinny is brought to you by Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil, keep that engine alive. Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. Toyota, let's go places. And General Tire. General Tire delivered.
Welcome back to the Skinny. Ken Stout with you. Rico Elmore sitting alongside Michael Young behind the controls, along with Stephen Grind. And we have Cruz Pedregon in the studio with us here today. Well, we heard you talk about when you were in the booth, they asked you if you could be a little bit critical of your brother. You said, yeah, no problem. Of course, that brings up thoughts of rivalries. We also talked about you beating up and kind of ruining the party through the 90s there for John Force. If you have a rivalry, and I'm sure you've had some over the course of time, maybe they've even changed, but can you pick out the biggest ones, or can you give us a couple of stories about some brutal ones? Maybe you and your brother wanting to go at it from time to time over Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah, as brothers, you're probably, especially if you're in the same sport, you're probably as competitive as you were when you were kids. Rico talked about he and his brother earlier, and I think it's the same, or if not more, when you're at our level, because there's a lot to gain, a lot to lose, and bragging rights. So I remember when I would race Tony, and I'm sure he feels the same way, we would actually have more satisfaction and more to gain by beating him,
Then even winning the event, right?
Yeah, and then or against any other opponent. Some of Tony's best reaction times were against me, and my other brother Frankie. We were critical of him because he would have his best reaction times against us, and then crappy ones against the other guys. Like, man, pretend you're racing us all the time when you race these other guys. But no, it's Tony had a great career, and and for me to look back at that, he was definitely one of my most feared opponents. I mean, he was hell on that reaction time, and and he had a good car. He drove for John Force, I think in '96. John at the time had a single car team. They brought a second car, and it was a duplicate of John's car. And Tony, he I look back at his career, and I don't know if you consider it a long career or whatever, but Tony's was, I still say to this day, was one of the best drivers in funny car, and I wish he was still out here racing. But hey, Tony has a family. I do. I have a daughter, Raya, but Tony's family and his business venture got him out of racing, and he's in the booth now and doing a great job. And I enjoy hearing Tony up in the booth really break it down like he does, because, like you said earlier, Ken, the analyst's job is really not to make friends with everybody out there. The analyst's job is to really tell the story, because you're the expert. You're the guy. Hey, put us in the seat, man. What are we talking about here? And people think drag, and we get enough criticism. It is, drag racing, especially my oval track guys. Man, squirt races. All you got to do is aim it straight. Well, baloney. Funny cars are trying to go every which way but straight. You have a 2 or 3 foot groove either way to be it. You can't see out of the car. You got to cut a light. The people that do it and do it well and do it winning, those guys could jump in any kind of car and do a good job too. So but anyway, hey, that's what we do, and we love it.
So 2 things. One, your father spent the money to send Tony to private school. Apparently he didn't learn anything. He went right down the same path as you and your brother. Yeah. That didn't change. So they apparently didn't work that well. Yeah. But no, Tony in the booth is great. And they've had a few over the last, some guys over the last few years, and they were great guys. Yeah. They were great guys for what they did. But Tony has been there, done that, super intelligent, and gets it done. But you were talking about being able to drive the funny car, and you can drive anything else. Let's talk about your late model dirt racing. I was a crew member. I was a crewman on the late model dirt program that we would go run. Tire guy.
What did he do, Cruz? Yeah, I want to know what did he do, and did he do it well?
He did everything and anything. We would meet at the shop, and we would go, and so at the time. So let me give you a little background. So the Tony Stewart Prelude to the Dream, prior to the Dream at Eldora, I was one of 2 drag race drivers selected to be a part of this all-star event. And
you and Caps, right?
Me and Caps.
Yeah, okay.
And so I got to tell you, and I got to thank Tony Stewart. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my career, to be able to be on a stage like that with all those people at Eldora and race against Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, pretty much all the top NASCAR drivers in these 700 horsepower dirt late model. With everybody watching, was pretty cool. So I actually bought a rocket chassis from Mark Richards down in Virginia, one of the top manufacturers. Sure, yeah. And I really wanted to be good at this. So what I did is I bought a car, and I had a truck and trailer. So I would get Rico and a couple other buddies, and we would go to during our off weekends, and I would go race all over the place to try to get some seat time. So when I went to the Prelude, I would be halfway decent. And so, yeah, but we had a good time. And Rico, Rico's a lot, and that's, by the way, I got to mention Fatheads has been with me. I remember I used to heat up. I was the guy that heated up with the little torch, try to bend my glasses around my big head and try to, so they wouldn't touch my temples and give me a friggin' headache. And Rico had the great idea to have glasses that fit people's heads. So anyway, but yeah, Fathead's been with me from the day one, and Rico, what I was gonna say about Rico, he loves racing. He's got a business that's doing well, but he also really loves racing. So we would go and he would be the tire guy. He would be adjust the spoiler. So we had a good time. We traveled a lot. And so, yeah, I'm grateful to be here. And, but yeah, so my racing extended a little bit beyond drag racing. I would do a little bit. I had midget cars back in the early 2000s. I had, Kevin Swindell drove for me, Josh Wise, Sammy drove for me. And so, yeah, I had, my love for racing is a little bit more than just casual watching it. I've got involved in it. And so, but I wish I want to do Tony Stewart. Let's do another Prelude. Let's do something with late models so guys like me can jump in there. And I'm racing iRacing now, so I'm going to be a little bit better than I was.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go, because it happened in my motorhome. Me and Tony and Cruz, Melissa, I forget who else was there. And Cruz flat out called Stewart out he goes, I want to race you on iRacing at Eldora in the late models, because he's become wicked good at it, right? So Tony has never taken him up on it, so I'm not sure what that means. So.
But yeah, I knew Stewart was serious when he picked the track conditions. He says dry slick. I went, oh man, this guy's one of the best on the dry slick. He doesn't want a hooked up track that's easy, and he strategically planted that there. But no, I'm half joking. Hey, Stewart, and what I notice about the iRacing is you'll get drivers that drive the real deal. They'll jump on iRacing and be right there with the top guys. So there's no doubt if he as competitive as Tony is, he's probably going to practice. If he ever takes me up on it, he's probably going to kick my butt. So that'll be a fun one.
They have a passion for motorsports, no doubt about that. That's why everybody's in this room. We'll have more when we come back.
The most intense 4 seconds of anybody's life, I guarantee you that. We're risking our lives. We're going really fast, pulling a lot of G-forces up to 5 Gs, going.
Once again, welcome back to the Skinny. We have Cruz Pedregon on the studio with us here today, and I want to pick his brain a little bit about what it's like to be inside of one of those funny cars. You've been doing it for a long time. You've experienced the highs, the lows, the crashes, and those massive explosions. You constantly ask you guys, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, it's so difficult to put into words, but how would you put it into words of what it feels like to drive a funny car on a perfect pass?
Well, first of all, your adrenaline is through the roof. They're very fast-moving cars. And what's scary about a funny car, and it gets me to this day, from the first time I got in one and now, is they move quicker and faster than your brain can pick up on it. So you have to drive a lot with instinctive movement. And you can't see out of them very well. You're looking through 2 plexiglass. You're looking through your shield. Like Rico pointed out, it's bent, so it's a little warped. You're looking at the plexiglass in front, and as you get to speed, it vibrates and it concaves a little bit. So your visibility, and you're sitting really in the back seat of a car. The injector's right there. It tilts. Clutch dust comes up. And man, you got to keep this thing right in the groove. And so it's pretty the most intense 4 seconds of anybody's life. I guarantee you that. But it's exhilarating. It's fun. But when you get out, people get out of the car. I'm like, man, why are you guys out of breath? Well, guess what? We're risking our lives. We're going really fast, pulling a lot of G-forces up to 5 Gs going down the track. And you're just happy the thing slows down at the other end, really. For couple seconds, you're hoping, man, I hope I set low ET. I hope I go really fast. And right at the finish line, man, I hope the parachutes come out, because anymore, these tracks are, they're not getting any shorter. They seem like it because we're going faster. So I give people this statistic. Think about this for a second. When I first started driving in the early 90s, we were going 280, 285 at the finish line, quarter mile. We're going that fast at half track now.
Wow.
So you don't have to be a drag race fan to put those numbers in perspective. 280 at half track. In fact, some, our car run 283, 84, 85. Heck, I was watching Brainerd. There was one guy who went 280. I think it was Robert Height or Matt Hagan went 288 at half track. So that we're accelerating that much harder. So slowing down is a big deal because, like I said, they're not going to bulldoze the end of these racetracks and we just want another 500 acres. Let's just So you have to really be on your game to slow these cars down too. But they're a man has created a hell of a machine in them, and a nitro motor and a drag race car. Those things are freaking wicked fast.
Yeah, and a lot of things that people don't understand as well is, they a lot of the speed is made by half track.
Mm-hmm.
And then the clutch locks up, and then you're driving your direct drive on it. That's why you see they run to the the 600-foot mark, if you will, or whatever. They run out there and they're running 285.
Yeah, 70, 80 mile an hour pickup from the half track to but that's a good point, Rico. From there, but and the G meter reflects that. If you look at a G meter on a drag car, even a dragster, people think right when you hit the throttle, man, you're just slamming your head. No, it's 2.5 Gs, but it actually climbs to Rico's point, as the clutch is locking up and pulling the car faster. That's the highest Gs, is when you go out about 200-300 feet to lock up, which is about half track. Man, the G meter spikes up and then it starts to drop off the rest of the way. So G meter is not what you think, like slams up and drops. Oh no, it progresses. And man, it wants to rip your head off. I remember I used to drive without a chin strap, right? I'm thinking, man, these guys are a bunch of, Bernstein was the first guy. Kenny was the first guy to do the chin strap in the early 90s. And he was the first guy. I'm thinking, man, Kenny, he's got weak neck muscles or something. But let me tell you, as cars have accelerated, for a while last year was driving, I couldn't see where I was going. I hit the wall a couple times. So the chin strap is a necessity now, because I don't care how strong a neck muscle you cannot keep your head up from hitting. And when you hit the back of the cage, now you're getting into the shaking of the chassis. So you see all these guys wear a chin strap, and that's because this thing's accelerate like no other.
In the chin strap, for everybody who doesn't know, literally right there on his helmet.
Yeah, you can lift that helmet up, by the way. I don't know we can
right there
on that or not.
Yeah, there's the chin strap, and it's right off the front. And when they put that on you, they've got your chin pinned to your chest.
Yeah.
So when it does take off, your chin doesn't go.
Yeah, what I do is I adjust it. So this attaches to your lap belt right here. Then you have this little adjustment. So what you do is when the guy straps me in, and the crew guy, he walks away, and I pull it down just where it touches, and then I move it forward because I don't want it way down, but I want it where my head is level with the horizon. And I mean, that thing's that little strap right there will keep your eyeballs from vibrate. And you can see, and we're I remember I used to get out of the car in like 2 seconds back in the day. And now we have so many safety harnesses and all these things. It takes a little while to get out of a car nowadays. So you better not be claustrophobic.
I know one of the coolest shots that I've seen, and it was actually going back a little bit, and it was primarily with the dragsters. You could really see it with the top fuel dragsters, but you could see, call it 300-400 foot out, when the clutch would lock up, and it would yank that front tire up on a dragster. It's like, oh my God, that is just unbelievable. They're already going that fast or that far out, and they hit that hard and then go to the other end. It's pretty incredible stuff. This guy is one of the best at it for sure in the NHRA, and we have more from him when we come back.
Heard was a loud pop and fire, like in my face, yellow fire, and it wouldn't go away. And I thought, man, this might be it. And I woke up in a helicopter.
The Skinny is brought to you by General Tire. General Tire delivers. Toyota. Let's go places. Lucas Oil. Keep that engine alive. And Fatheads Eyewear. Hardcore since '04.
We've had a great time with Cruz Pedregon in the studio with us here today. I've been picking his brain a little bit and learning something about what it feels like to be inside of one of those cars. We've yet to touch on when one of these things explodes. And man, you guys have some of the most violent explosions of anybody in the industry. Can you give us any sort of description of what it feels like when that blower lifts off of one of those things?
Yeah, not good. I remember one time in Vegas, this was like in 06, I was racing Gary Densham, who was driving for John Force at the time, and the engine blew up, and all I heard was a loud pop and fire, like in my face, yellow fire, and it wouldn't go away, and I thought, man, this might be it, and I woke up in a helicopter, and I thought I was dreaming, and that was the first time I really thought, man, do I really, really want to do this? And it really made me think about all the cool things about driving, but to go through this, I don't know. So it took me a while to recover from that. At the time, we didn't have our head pads like you see now. I saw NASCAR. They have the same pad where we have. So we built the cages bigger, a lot of to decelerate as your head hits the cage. At the time, they had tiny little things that were about as hard as his desk, and so my head hit that and it lights out. So yeah, the explosion thing is part of funny car racing. It happens so fast. Stuff's usually falling down by the time you realize, but it is scary because you have a driver in the other lane that's going as fast, and that's probably one of my bigger fears even today is getting T-boned by the other car. And luckily a lot of the guys, or most of the guys and gals do a good job and make sure, hey, there's somebody in the other lane, we gotta make sure we keep it on our side. But yeah, explosions are no fun, but they're part of it. I've had singed eyebrow. In fact, that run, my visor blew open. So you see these little tiny things on here. The Bell makes a great helmet, and so that the shield really locks down. But an explosion actually blew the thing open, burned all my eyebrows and everything eyebrows off. So, but the safety features that we do have are something I hang my hat on. The suits, all the stuff, the socks, so that's what I say. We have a lot more equipment now than we used to. So I rely on that to keep me safe. Nowadays, there's shutoffs, there's different things to protect the driver, but we're going a lot faster. So you're seeing less and less explosions now, but I've had my share. I remember when I first started driving that McDonald's car, the rap on me was, oh man, that kid, he ain't paid his dues. He's never been through. Oh, well, they can't say that now. I paid my dues, and my pound of flesh is on that racetrack somewhere. So, but yeah, it's, I say if you haven't been through it in funny car, you haven't been driving long enough. So everybody goes through it.
So what was the biggest one that you can remember?
Well, that was the biggest one.
In Vegas?
In Vegas, and, in my famous wheel stand, 2016, look it up, and I think it's had 4 million views. And so I think that one was the scariest because I had time to think for a long. I'm looking up at the sky on that particular one. It was a windy day. Laid back headers were like, we kept laying them back. And so until something like that happened, I remember I was in flight racing Robert Height up in the air, and I was going really fast. And I thought, man, I should be like, I shouldn't be in this position. So I had time to think the what if, and that was scary because like, what if I land and I'm going this way? What landed perfectly straight. And I survived, but everyone. Is
that when you put it up on the drag bar on the?
Yeah, it was.
Bar?
Yeah, it was. So we did. So yeah, the car had wheels up before half track, and it did not land till the finish. So think about how the 500 or 600 feet in the air at over 270 or 80 miles an hour.
Absolutely, the whole back half of the
Yeah.
track. I mean, the only way you could have done any better is if you pulled a Garlits and pirouetted around and shot back up the track.
But the fires, I had a fire in Denver one year, and Denver's thin air, right? So I couldn't really breathe very well anyway, right? So then your heart rate goes up because you're like in the moment, right? So I remember I was starting to run out of air, and I felt like I was going to pass out. That was scary because I couldn't get out of the car, because the car was still going. I remember I started to undo my belts, and I went, oh no, I don't want to be ragdolling it through the windshield. So I had the presence of mind to keep my belts on. But man, those cars, they take a while to stop now. I mean, you go in that fast, like you hear skidding and sliding, and that's not a good sound.
Well, it's almost like they get a hop too. When you really start getting into the brake, it starts.
I remember I started smelling like, well, there's the paint. Oh man, there's the carbon fiber. Oh man, there goes the plastic from the wires. I started different.
It's getting closer.
Different flavors, and I'm thinking, next is going to be my skin. So, but hey, I hopped out of that thing, and I was breathing a lot of air after that.
It's funny you say your brain isn't up to speed with one of those cars, but when you talk about even your memory of that, think of how quickly your brain is going. You're already planning to get out of that car, and you're like, whoa, that's a little too quick. I got to hang on here for a moment.
I remember one last story about that. I remember Tony, and we talked about being competitive, but you also worry about your brother. That's your brother in there. And I remember he had a fire one time blew the body off. And I remember I was at half track on my little Zuma, and I saw Tony do something I don't think I've ever done, but Tony had the presence to wipe the oil off of his visor, and I knew he was okay then. And I thought, man, that's pretty, Tony's done things, and I don't mind saying it, that have even surprised me, in a good way. So anyway, yeah, I saw that and I went, man, when I'm in there, I'm just like trying to stop the car. I'm not wiping nothing, but Tony had enough, like I say, presence to wipe off so you can see where the heck he was going. And he bounced it off the wall, and there's no body on the car, right? And he hopped out of there. So Tony's had his share too.
Wasn't that the one where he was on Good Morning America or something?
Well, that was a different one. That was in Pomona, and that wasn't the time. This one was, I think, St. Louis, and Tony actually wound up going to the final at that race. But yeah, no, the one he was on his own, and Tony had already, he was on the downside budget wise. He was kind of piecing sponsors together, and that was a pretty bad one there. But yeah, he was on Good Morning America and the whole deal. So yeah, it was pretty spectacular stuff.
Before we get out of here, you've been with Snap-on for so many years. I want you to give them a little bit of love, but to take a look at a relationship like that that's lasted for so long, everything's a give and take. It has to work for them. It has to work for you. Yeah. Clearly, you are a great spokesperson for the company, or you wouldn't be with them this long.
Yeah, I remember the then president asked me if I was willing to go out there and get out. We're going to work you now, because this was right after the 2008 economy crash, and I'm like, and at the time, and I still feel this way, man, I'll do anything to make this work. And that's the attitude you have to have, is, hey, whatever it takes. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for them. The tool thing works. They get to see their great tools work in the pit area, right in front of all their customers. They have over 3,500 franchisees. I haven't ridden with all of them, not yet anyway, but maybe one day. But it's a great network. They all love racing. There's a motto, hey, you may not like racing, but your customers do. So, hey, it's a great partnership. I look forward to many years. We have a great car, this year, 2022, and we're going to win it. My career has always been win at the end. We start off, we flounder, we hit our heads a couple times, but at the end, my career, if you look at there's boxers that are that way. They start off slow, get hit in the mug a couple times, they come back, and that's what we're going to do this year. But I do want to thank Fatheads for having me in the studios. Rico's a great friend of mine. Love him and love the products. Here we are. So thank you, Ken. Appreciate it, Rico.
And you'll be able to find those on Snap-on trucks.
That's right. That's right. We finally got on board with Snap-on. They have a nice little display there, and they're going to put the Fatheads with the safety glasses, and I couldn't be more proud of that relationship starting out here too.
It only took a couple of years.
Took a few, yeah, more than a couple.
But we got it done.
It's a big wheel. It turns slow, and it's all good.
That's true.
It's a great product.
It's been a great time for sure. A very successful NHRA funny car driver. Of course, a two-time champ behind the wheel of that Snap-on car. Keep an eye on him here. The rest of this season looks promising for these guys. Hope you enjoyed the show here. I'm Ken Stout, Rico Elmore, and Mr. Cruz Pedregon. Now you have the skinny on that guy.